Going to be doing our segment Guru Vision, where we're going to talk about all the happenings, some of the things that the Guru predicted over the course of the last 2 weeks that have come to transpire today, as of today. And also, we're going to be talking about the Big Ten breakdown, which is where we'll start the program today. Oh, I also wanted to say I'm joined by Julian Jackson, who's producing for me today. Appreciate Julian being here. And let's get on with the Big Ten breakdown. I'm going to start by mentioning what's going on with the stronger teams. Illinois right now, the Illini, has a stretch of very winnable games. They just won against Northwestern last night. They're going to have a tough game on the road against Minnesota before they have a couple more games against Michigan State and also 2 games against the not very good Nebraska Cornhuskers. So there's 4 games in a row that they could win before they're going to have to go and play at number 21 Wisconsin. That will be one of the 2 toughest games left on the regular season slate for the Illini. They'll play in between Wisconsin. They'll play Nebraska for a second time, followed by the season finale at Ohio State. So that'll be a big season finale if they can keep the winning streak going. As for Ohio State had a huge win in Indiana. They won by 19, and they were led by E.J. Liddell, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists and a steal. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Don't leave E.J. Liddell, the forward, open at the top of the key. He will kill you. I'm not sure if that was a story with Indiana, but he had a big game. Justice Suing also had a big game with a double-double, 16 points, 10 rebounds, and an assist. For the losing Indiana Hoosiers, Trace Jackson Davis had 23 points, 9 rebounds. And Jerome Hunter came off the bench. We're here in Columbus. Jerome Hunter's from nearby Pickerington. He's a sophomore for the Hoosiers, and he had 10 points and 2 rebounds against his rival here, Ohio State. Ohio State's going to move forward. They're going to have to play Penn State. Michigan, number 3 Michigan, had a big win against Wisconsin. Isaiah Livers had 20 points. And Hunter Dickinson of the Wolverines had 11 points, 15 rebounds, and a big 5 block shots for Hunter Dickinson in that game against Wisconsin. Michigan is going to have to play against Rutgers. And as long as Ohio State beats Penn State and Michigan beats Rutgers, that is going to lead to a huge matchup between Michigan and Ohio State that's going on this Sunday on CBS. Number 4 Wolverines with Hunter Dickinson versus number 4 Ohio State with E.J. Liddell and Kyle Young. Michigan's got some really good pieces with Hunter Dickinson, Isaiah Livers, Franz Wagner, to name a few. The Illini, they're in the mix. All 3 of those schools are top 10. They have those 2 draft-worthy picks in Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe Cockburn, and so that's the top of the Big Ten. I'm into an area now. I'm going into an area where I call the middlers, and I think that the Big Ten is a key conference to talk about these middlers that I talk about. The middlers are teams in mainly the Big Ten, maybe possibly the ACC or Big 12, that are they going to get in or not? Are there any of the smaller conferences like the Valley, the Mountain West, that can pluck away a 7th at-large or a 7th team getting in the dance from the Big Ten? Right now in the Big Ten, there are 5 ranked teams that are in and probably 2 more. The 2 that are right behind the ranked teams are Purdue and Rutgers. And after Purdue and Rutgers is Indiana and Minnesota. So Purdue and Rutgers are fighting for the 6th and 7th spot, and Indiana and Minnesota are trying to survive. I said see who the last in will be. Minnesota and Indiana are fighting to stay alive, and tonight they go head-to-head from Assembly Hall. That will be televised, Minnesota versus the Indiana Hoosiers tonight. There are, like I said, there are 5 ranked teams. 6 are going to probably get in, maybe more likely 7. It makes me think about who might be able to take away the bid. Again, I was talking about the Valley. I think that the Valley has 2 teams that can play in the dance. The question is as long as they both make it to the conference final, will the loser be able to wrestle one of those bids away from a school like Indiana or Minnesota or Rutgers? Can, the Midlers in the Pac-12 seem a lot stronger to me than the Midlers in the Big 12. Those Midlers in the Big 12 that you would think of would be Kansas and Oklahoma State. And if you watch basketball, you have to be pretty certain that Kansas is going to make it in. It's going to be hard for one of the Mountain West teams to get in. Right now, I'm going to talk a little bit about games to watch over the coming week after today. Tonight, you've got the Arizona Sun Devils at the number 20 ranked USC Trojans. The only losses that USC has had have been to UConn, Colorado, and Oregon State. They are on a 6-game winning streak. Other big games coming up on Thursday. Houston is going to take on the only team that may get into the dance in the American besides them, in the Wichita Shockers. That's one of the biggest games in the American Conference on ESPN2 tomorrow night. That being said, also tomorrow night, Iowa plays Wisconsin on ESPN3. On the U in the American East, there's a big battle in the American East between the Vermont Catamounts and the UMBC. I think, I don't even know that. I think it's the Retrievers maybe. But that's for first place. There's also a nightcap on Thursday night between the Colorado Buffaloes and the Oregon Ducks. Friday, big matchup in the Atlantic 10. That matchup in the Atlantic 10 is between St. Louis and Dayton, who's on ESPN2. St. Louis lost to Dayton. St. Louis had been out on COVID protocol, and they'd been out for a while. When they returned, Dayton came in and beat St. Louis. On Saturday is always the big day for college games. You got Illinois versus Minnesota. Big game, number 18, Virginia Tech versus Florida State in the ACC. UConn and number 5, Nova. Also on Saturday, Texas Tech, number 7, at Kansas. Another big game between number 14, West Virginia, and Texas. Going into Monday, Monday's big game next week will be Texas Tech versus Cade Cunningham and number 3, Oklahoma State. And then on Tuesday, before we come into the show next week, you're going to have St. Louis at VCU, 2 of the top programs in the Atlantic 10. That is your Big Ten breakdown and games to watch. I want to give my producer, Julian Jackson, a chance to come in before break and do a plug for some of his programs here at the Score on Air Network.
Mark, I really do appreciate, your introduction, and it's an honor to be on the show with you today, helping out and producing. But what I would like to be able to outline is the show The Crockpot, which you can catch on Tuesdays here on the Score on Air Network. It's add a little bit of spice. We add a lot of flavor. There's so many different ingredients in sports, so you're not just watching college basketball. You're not just watching NBA basketball. Those are the things we're not discussing. We're discussing such a wide variety. So kind of open up your sports cabinet. reach in and grab some of those things those ingredients, those sports you haven't seen, watched, or thought about for a long time, those old non-perishables. You go ahead and throw them in, mix them into the pot with a little bit of stew, or, add a little bit of water. Throw that baby on warm, and then dip your ladle in and see what you get. So last week we had talked about X Games. We talked about NBA basketball. We uncovered and unpacked what was going on in the Super Bowl and in the NFL. But you never really know what you're going to get until you dip the ladle in and throw it in your bowl. So that's the crock pot, and Julian Jackson is here, your host, and happy to be with you today, Mark.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. It's the crock pot with Julian Jackson. You are watching On the Mark with Mark Rhoades, a college basketball program. This is the Score On Air Network. Back to On the Mark with Mark Rhoades, a college basketball podcast. Just did a little bit of Big Town breakdown, talking about games to watch this coming week, and I'm going to be talking about this probably till Selection Sunday, talking about big conference middlers trying to contend for NCAA bids with small conference contenders. The guys in these small conferences that have had really good seasons, but not everybody can win the conference, and a lot of these conferences only normally get one bid. Wanted to mention, I think I did mention that I think the Missouri Valley with Drake and Loyola have got a chance to get two bids, but it's going to take those teams in the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12. Somebody's going to have to lose out. And the Atlantic 10 is loaded with teams. I've predicted at the beginning of the season that I thought there would be 3 teams in. And when I look at the Atlantic 10 and I look at the standings, what I see is 8 pretty good teams. I think there will be 7 that see the postseason, depending on how my man TDM, Tavian Dunn Martin, and the Duquesne Dukes do. Maybe they can get into the postseason too. But I see 7, if not 8, Atlantic 10 teams making the postseason. When I talk about saying making the postseason, I'm also including the NIT, if that's a tournament that hopefully goes on. It's really wide open in the Atlantic 10. There's going to be some Atlantic 10 teams that get left out of the dance that aren't going to be happy. Our early front runners for the A10 were St. Louis and Richmond, but they're not really in the top 3 right now when it comes to the standings. You're looking at the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure under Mark Schmidt. You've got Bob Kellop's Davidson Wildcats, and then you've also got Mike Rhoades' VCU Rams, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit in Guru Vision. They're going to get 3 in, and if they get 2 in, it's going to be even more disappointing. There's another tough conference out west in the Mountain West it's the battle of the states. 4 teams, people are talking like out west, these Mountain West people think that 4 teams are going to get in. I don't know because I'm not as aware of Mountain West, but it is the battle of the states. You have Utah State, Boise State, Colorado State, and South Dakota State all on top of the Mountain West fighting to get 2 or 3 bids into the tournament. Even the Nevada Wolfpack aren't bad. So, the Mountain West is a high mid-major. Both the Mountain West and the Atlantic 10 are high mid-majors. I got a chance to watch some Big South action. Winthrop was down by 8 with 5 minutes in the first half, went on an 11-0 run against Radford, and they never looked back. The Winthrop killed Radford on the offensive glass. They got 16 offensive rebounds that killed the Radford Highlanders, and that was behind DJ Burns, who had 18 points and 2 assists for the Eagles, guy to keep an eye on. Not sure if Radford has a chance to get in the dance, only if they beat Winthrop in the tourney title game. A guy named Famir Ali, who is a guard. He's very small, 5'9". He had a great first half, 23 points and 2 rebounds and 4 assists for the game, but wasn't as active in the second half. I've kind of covered what I had to talk about with the Valley. Outside of Drake and Loyola, there's another strong team in Missouri State. Unless they win it, they're not going to get in it. I think that makes sense. Missouri State, I think, is an NIT team. The Southland is a 3-team race between Sam Houston, Abilene Christian, and Stephen F. Austin. Both Sam Houston and ACU are ahead of Stephen F. Austin, and that's what it looks like in the Southland. In the A-Sun, Bellarmine, who I've spoke about before in their first Division I year, has 10 straight wins. They just defeated Northern Alabama back-to-back, and they're getting ready to go to Northern Florida. If they can win 2 games in Northern Florida to extend the game to a 12-game streak, it sets up a matchup with Liberty, who they will have 2 games against Liberty after they play North Florida, and Liberty is undefeated at home. So it will, as long as the Knights of Bellarmine get through Northern Florida, it sets up a number 1 versus number 2 matchup in the A-Sun between the Liberty Flames, I think, and the Bellarmine Knights. Mentioned the Mountain West. In the MAC, Toledo leads the Mid-American Conference. They are followed by the fast-playing Akron Zips. In the American Conference, I mentioned in the upcoming games is that Houston is going to get to play Wichita, who's the second-best team realistically in the American. Wichita won on Wednesday 61-60 against Johnny Dawkins' Central Florida Knights. Of course, Johnny Dawkins, the pedigree that he's had from Duke University, well-known, played his pro ball a lot of years with the Philadelphia 76ers. Dawkins had his team ready, but they were 1 point shy, taking on Wichita. Gilbert I'm trying to read this. Arterique Gilbert led the Shockers in that game with 17 points and 2 assists. I see the Houston situation, them ranked 6, as being a lot similar to the Gonzaga situation, where both Houston, a lot like Gonzaga, played some tough teams in the non-conference schedule, but also like Gonzaga are in a conference that doesn't have a lot of contenders, and the competition isn't nearly as tough as it's going to be when they get back and have to play the big dogs in the tournament. So will Houston, and I'll throw Gonzaga in there as well because we've mentioned it before, will they be able to come back from going from playing tough teams to playing not as tough conference teams to playing in the dance where you've got to win 5 straight? We're going to see how good Houston is. I'm suspect of them at best. They do have a good player in Quentin Grimes for Kelvin Sampson's Cougars. In the Ohio Valley Conference, Moorhead has moved into second place. They are on their longest winning streak since the 1983-1984 season. Moorhead, that's 12 games. And Moorhead's only bad loss was to SIU Edwardsville. They lost 7 games, and the other 6 games aren't bad losses. Kentucky, Richmond, Ohio State, EKU, Clemson, and conference-leading Belmont. So Moorhead's having a good year, and they've moved ahead of EKU in second place in the Ohio Valley Conference. Belmont still the team to beat. mentioned in the American East, I was talking about Vermont's got a game coming up. The Catamounts beat Stony Brook 61-57 behind Steph Smith's 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. UVM is 9-3 right now and in first place in the American East. Julian, do you have anything else you want to plug here?
No, man. And there's nothing really that I'd like to plug in particular. The only thing is that, I'm so enamored by, your research and knowledge and the information that you're able to give the viewers out there. And I've told you this before offline, is that what you're doing is providing me with enough information to be able to fill out a bracket and get those points necessary on the early end in those first and second round games. You brought up University of Maryland, Baltimore College, I do believe. Yeah. And so that right there is a team who had an early upset in the past. And so that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to, is filling out my bracket this year, because every time I get on and watch the show, I'm looking at you and I'm going, man, this guy is giving me everything I need, because it's not stuff you normally see. You normally see stuff and you can't get it. If you don't have ESPN Plus, it's stuff you can't get.
I'm not sure who beat Virginia. Was it Baltimore County or was it the other one? Because there's 2 Maryland schools that are county. I thought it might have been Maryland Casey.
No, it was definitely Baltimore County, and
okay.
I apologized earlier when I said University of Maryland, Baltimore College, but it's University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Right.
And I have grandparents who live out there. We love heading out to Baltimore, grabbing crabs and stuff. So I'd love to be able to visit their campus sometime. But, that's off topic, but I would like to get back to the material. Yes, it was UMBC who knocked off Virginia, and that is the first 16 over 1 win. I mean, we see the 15-2s happen not all the time, but often. You're always expecting one of those upsets, and what I look at is I grit my teeth in fear of my team, whatever that team might be, or whatever team that my team is typically during tournament time, the team that is, that I want to go far, and I find it difficult to put a 2 up there going, oh man, I can't believe they're playing against that 15, that team who's played into the tournament, and I get a little upset, and that's what happens.
There haven't been that many 15 over 2s. I can't remember how many they said. It's only happened 4 or 5 times maybe, but that 16 was the first time.
It's oftentimes just an upset that you look forward to, and in your bracket, and you're looking at bracket busters. I fill out a few brackets throughout the year. I do a Kevin Kurgis one that's local. I do, several different brackets, but, sometimes I'll have my bracket buster bracket. Sometimes I'll have this is my $1 million submitted to ESPN bracket. It really just depends, but the information that I receive here on this show is vital to my success and for my winning money. So I appreciate you, Mark, and I appreciate everything that you're doing out here. And I call him the Phages. He's the Phages to me, but Mark Phages to everyone else. He's the Phages.
That's cool, man. Yeah. It's pretty close to what my radio moniker was when I did the rock show. I had a rock show for a little bit. Phage Rock Show.
Okay, you're a rocker, huh? I can't tell.
Well, I actually cut my hair. I had it real long right before I started.
That was prior
to the old look.
Prior to the time I met you.
I've taken this bit a little longer. Thanks for the input. Appreciate the compliment, folks. That has been your segment, Mid-Major Minutes. Coming up next, the big show, the big segment, the big last segment of On the Mark, as we go to the mind of the master, Will Turpin. It's Guru Vision. You are watching On the Mark with Mark Phages, a college basketball podcast. This is the Score On Air Network. Welcome back to On the Mark with Mark Phages, a college basketball podcast. I'm Mark. This is my college basketball podcast. Hope you guys have enjoyed what I've presented to you over the course of the last 30 minutes. This is our last segment. This is where I bring you into the mind of the master. That's right, the guru, Will Turpin. Will, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's good to be with you again today, Mark. We've got a lot to cover here today.
We do have a lot to cover, and we're going to jump right into your specialty with the SEC. We've talked before over the course of the last several weeks with not a heavy amount of knowledge, but you did give us some knowledge last week on the team. Missouri, who you weren't impressed with, they were ranked 10th last week, and then they lost, and they dropped down to like 20th, and they've lost again. I'm kind of curious of what they've done that's caused them to lose some of these games, and what you saw that that has dictated them to go from going to being a top 10 team and to going to being out of the top 25 in maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, when we were talking, I guess if we go back maybe about 3 weeks, and I said I kind of thought that Missouri were a little bit of a phony in the SEC. Xavier Pinson and Drew Smith, man, they've both been excellent all year, and they're big-time playmakers, but nobody else has stepped up. Nobody else has helped them. If one of these guys have an off night, Quanzo Martin's team just can't hardly compete, And probably the last thing on it, Jeremiah Tillman, he's like a 6'10" beast, 260 pounds. But he's missed the last 2 games due to like death in the family. But if you go back and you look at, when they played Ole Miss, if you go back and look when they played Ole Miss, he wasn't in foul trouble. He had 25 minutes. He got like 4 shots, only 6 rebounds, and he's been sort of consistent all year. And then you look at that TCU game, he had 33 points in 35 minutes and like 15 boards. That's the issue. They just don't have anybody to help out the guards.
Kind of missed the last thing you said. They miss out on what?
Yeah, they just don't have anybody to help the 2 guards out. I mean, with Tillman, he's where he's missed the last couple of games, but even before that, he's been so inconsistent all year. I mean, he's a big boy, 6'10", 260 pounds. If he's not getting 14 points and 14 rebounds a game, Missouri just don't have enough weapons to be a second weekend team.
You're saying beyond Tillman, the big man, that's their most reliable big man, and if he's not going, they have problems in the front court.
Yeah, because Pinson and Drew Smith, I mean, they really tear it up. I mean, they're 2 of the best guards, but they just don't have any help. And we'll talk with these teams that we're getting ready to talk about a little bit. Some of those, that's the difference is I just don't see Missouri being a second weekend team. I mean, they're going to really have to fight just to get in, I think. And but I don't see them being a second weekend team.
I was going to say, you said that they're going to fight to get in. That puts them in the whole Midler thing I'm talking about with, you say Pinson and the other guy and Tillman. That's 3 guys. And from what you're saying today, it sounds like Missouri has a depth issue.
They definitely do. Yeah. And, if you look at some of these other teams, your boy there, Eric Musselman in Arkansas, they've quietly won 7 out of 8. They beat Florida last night, despite their 2 leading scorers, Moses Moody and JT Note. They combined 4 for 17, but they just hunkered down on defense, didn't give up a single basket in the last, I think, 4 minutes and 40 seconds of the game. And, that's a sign that Arkansas is trending up. But they're another Midler team, and as of right now, I'm not going to put them in the – I'm not saying that they can't get to the second weekend, but I don't have them circled yet.
Will, I want to stay here in your wheelhouse and continue the Guru Vision, starting off here with some stuff about the SEC. I think we've kind of talked about the SEC's been down, and you said to me this past week that you really don't see anybody being a threat to compete in March Madness beyond the Crimson Tide of Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC, though, is they've made a little bit of a trend change. All these teams are wanting to play fast. LSU, Auburn, Georgia, Arkansas. I mean, Kentucky's even started playing faster. All these teams are wanting to run now. And they've sort of transitioned to that. They didn't really, all these teams didn't start the season that way. And so, like a team like a Georgia could grind its way in, they would be a hard out just because they play a hard style to keep up with, and that they can guard. So,
Cool. So depending on how many SEC teams get in, how many do you think can move on to the second weekend beyond Alabama? Is there any?
yeah, right now I just have Alabama, but I do think that, you know, yeah, Tennessee has the talent. It's just a matter if Rick Barnes can land the plane, so to speak, before he runs out of runway, because he's got the players. He's got some freshmen that he's really dependent on. Like another team like North Carolina, they've got some freshman guards. I think they're very similar. That they just got to get these freshmen up to speed.
Okay, so that's the SEC for you. Moving on to the ACC, I got a chance to kind of study up on Virginia. Virginia is a team that we had talked about, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, with just a highly ranked team that I didn't know a lot about. I got to do a little bit of prep for that. Know that Kaihi Clark is the that guard from the national championship team that we were talking about a week or two ago, and Virginia's got three guys that can all be all ACC, all conference, first, second, third teamers. You've also got Sam Hauser, who's the 6'8" senior that transferred in from Marquette, and you got Jay Huff as well, who's like 7'1". And the thing about Huff and Hauser are they're both big forwards, but what I've noticed about them is they can play well on the outside as well. That being said, Huff just couldn't get it going in a big loss for UVA the other day as number 16 Florida State blew Virginia out at Florida State. Sam Hauser was benched for a lot of the first half with foul trouble, and Jay Huff and the UVA offense just was stagnant, couldn't get going. MJ Walker was the star player for Florida State with 17.6 rebounds. He could be first team all ACC. Anything to say here about this big game between Florida State and Virginia, or just to address these teams? You talked about it in the last couple weeks, and Florida State has become exactly what you said they were going to become.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one of the big things with Florida State, they just have so many weapons, and that's what we talked about a few weeks ago, and that's still reigning true. I mean, I think they've had like 5 or 6. I think these 7 guys hit double digits in points the last 3 games. So you just don't know where it's going to come from. And if you want to run and gun, and I think that's what we need to look at as the season goes on. We want these teams that can play multiple styles. And Florida State, they're like West Virginia, who we're going to talk about. They can just play every what way you want to play. If you want to grind it out and muck it up and play a game in the 60s, they can do that. And if you want to run up and down the court and spread it, Florida State can do that as well. And they're a versatile team that could easily make a big run.
And they've got depth too. A big thing I've noticed in my studies of Florida State and Leonard Hamilton's team is that you've got Scotty Barnes, who is the sixth ranked recruit in the country, and he's coming off the bench. I don't know the other names, but I understand that Leonard's got like 3 guys coming off the bench that all have NBA potential. So there's something to be said for Florida State. And there's something to be said about your analysis that has pushed them way up. I mean, if they're 16th now, they're going to be closer to 10th when the AP rankings come out on Monday. Anything else to be said about the ACC?
I think that ACC tournament. I think the ACC tournament will be really good. I mean, I think, with Virginia and Florida State, and like I said, you can't count Carolina out because they've got, 2 of the best bigs in the country. And then you throw in, they got freshman guards that have ice water in their veins. They've never seen a 3 they didn't like. And both those guys, if they get hot, during the tournament. That's another team that, like I said, they've got the talent. And if North Carolina surprised some people, they've got the kind of team that could sneak into the Final Four, so to speak, if you could.
Well,
At North
there,
Carolina.
there you go. That kind of totally trumps what I was going to say. Well, I mean, I thought that the ACC middlers were way less likely to get bumped out by a smaller team because the middlers are Louisville, and you're talking about North Carolina, and you're even talking about North Carolina going deep. Louisville and North Carolina are not going to get bumped out by Drake. So that's why I kind of am leading towards the Big Ten as far as the conference that might lose a bit or two to a smaller conference. There was a big game in the Big 12 between Oklahoma and West Virginia that went into double overtime. The Sooners were down early and took the lead with like 7 minutes left. Yep. They were led by, I'm looking here, Austin Reeves led the way for Oklahoma. He's a Wichita State transfer. The guys that played well for the Mountaineers were Derek Culver, the 6'10", and Jalen Bridges, along with Taz Sherman and Miles McBride. Oklahoma, they beat Alabama, what was it, 2 weeks ago now, Will? They're ranked 12th. Probably this win, as long as they don't lose before Monday, Oklahoma will probably get into the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, that was as good a game as we've seen all year. I mean, a double overtime thriller, instant classic. Derek Culver, sensational. Him and Austin Reeves were just trading punches to the face, basically, one after another. And, some of it's interesting. If you think about West Virginia, they played a game, a full game with 2 overtimes, and they had 5 total turnovers in the entire game. That's just insane to play, 50 minutes of basketball with only 5 turnovers. And what makes West Virginia so tough, this is a team right here, if you're, wanting to circle some teams that are going to play in the second and third weekends, West Virginia, it's hard for me to see them. I mean, you can go ahead and put them in the Sweet 16 for sure. Because they can just beat you. They got about 5 guys that can get 20 points on any given night. They're sort of like Florida State in that regard. It doesn't matter. They can play whatever style you want, and they've proven that as well. So, I mean, they played slow down games, speed up games against Oklahoma, and they just keep winning. I'm ready to circle them, like I said, into the Sweet 16.
It's pretty wild, that stat. 5 turnovers for the Mountaineers, and they still lose. I'm not sure. I know that Bob Huggins lost a player or two early on in the season, but like you're saying, keep winning, and that's what West Virginia's doing up until this Oklahoma game. Is they've been real solid, and like I said, I don't see the Big 12. Kansas is going to be in, and I would think that Oklahoma State's in. It's going to take. I just don't know who won't make it for 1 or 2 of those Mountain West or Atlantic 10 or Valley teams to get in. It's a tough paradox, Will. Another team we've talked about that you've been really high on is these Virginia Commonwealth Rams, and you talked about it a little bit this past show last week. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about with VCU?
I mean, Highland Nation, he just keeps on doing it. He's the catalyst. He's got the ball in his hands 75% of the time. And really, Mike Rhoades has just done a great job. This is a coaching wizardry here. He's defined roles for all of his guys, and, man, they've really drank the Kool-Aid. He's got 9 players that are averaging at least 15 minutes a game, and they just flat-out play defense. I think they're only giving up like in the low 60s a game. And they do everything that you need to do to win games. This is what we talked about. They don't turn the ball over. They make free throws down the stretch. In the last 5 minutes, if it's a close game, you can just get on your betting app and circle VCU because they're probably gonna get the win for you.
The Atlantic 10, I was discussing it earlier. I want to further discuss it here with you. Seems like you said it well last night. There's going to be some Atlantic 10 teams that when it's all said and done are going to be upset because there are going to be some very good teams from the A10 that aren't going to get in. I'm looking at the standings last night, and I see at least 7 postseason teams. And when I say 7 postseason teams, I'm meaning both the Big Dance as well as the NIT. And it's really hard to call it. Like, I think I'm still sticking with the A10 getting 3 in. I think those 3 right now would be St. Louis, I'll say VCU, and it's going to be either Davidson or Davidson. St. Bonaventure's in there too. So I think those 4 are competing for 3 spots. I think that Dayton and Richmond, I'm not sure how good Richmond's been. They seem to kind of vanished since the beginning of the year. Are you with me on this? Do you feel like the A10
is a big one tonight against VCU?
Oh, they play tonight. Is that what you said? That they
yeah, they played tonight.
There's another big game for VCU.
Yeah, it's a huge game for Richmond.
Yeah, there's a big game on Tuesday for VCU as well with St. Louis. That's another. It's going to be on the CBS Sports Network. Will, what else can we talk about here? We've talked about the ACC, gone through the SEC. Is there any other surprises you got for us? What do you think about another team getting in from the West Coast Conference? Can BYU maybe get in? I think that BYU is probably the second best team behind Gonzaga, and I don't know, man. I'm not sure if that conference can pull one in. I think the 3 conferences that are trying to get a second bid or more are the Valley, A10, and the Mountain West.
Yeah, it is. I would probably agree with you there. I don't see BYU getting in, and especially another thing that's really going to hurt those teams is the fact that the Pac-12 is actually it's improved. It's better than I thought it was going to be, and USC's the cream there. We talked about them about 3 or 4 weeks ago too, and they got hot. And they're holding teams like 63 a game. I think USC's a sneaky team that people may forget about because they're just out there on the West Coast and nobody really pays attention. But he's got another group that that can guard. I mean, they're giving up like 63 a game as well, I think, and they've got multiple guys that can do it. I mean, I think Evan Mobley and Ty Eddy have been scoring mostly for them, but they've got other guys that can do it too. Ethan Anderson had 5 threes against UCLA a few weeks ago, so
speaking
I like USC as well.
Speaking of UCLA, can Mick Cronin get in the dance and do what Mick Cronin does in the best in the dance? Probably get UCLA. Will UCLA get in there? They were ranked.
I think they're going to have to fight. They're going to need a deep run in the Pac-12 to make it, and they're a soft team. I just don't think, even if they get in, I don't. They'd need a really good matchup just to win the first game, probably.
Yeah, because
they really fell off my radar.
Mick Cronin doesn't win in the dance, so he's good at getting teams to the dance, but he's not good at really getting them to the second weekend. I'm a little biased.
Remember that USC, that Andy Enfield, though. Yeah, everybody needs to remember that old Andy Enfield there, USC. Just kind of keep an eye on that team when you're filling out your bracket, because, like I said, that's the kind of team that'll get lost, and you'll quickly discard them, and then they'll end up be playing in the second weekend.
A couple other Pac-12 teams that we were talking about that you're interested in include the Colorado Buffaloes and the Stanford Cardinals. Could you give us a little breakdown of Stanford or Colorado as we get ready to wind down the show?
Yeah, Colorado, Ricardo Patton, he's their coach there. It's rubber meets the road, really, for them. I mean, they had a bad loss to Cal the other night. And, Mark, I tell you, I don't know. They got to finish. Let's see, Oregon on the road, Oregon State, USC, and UCLA. I mean, they're going to have to win at least 2 of those and have a strong finish in the Pac-12 for Colorado to make it. But I'd like to see Colorado make it because, like I said, I think they're a versatile team. And, like I said, depending on the matchup, they could win 2 games in the tournament and get to that second weekend if they got. They're a team though that kind of requires the matchup though. They can't play any style you want, and so that's one of the things when you're really filling out your bracket. We've talked about that a lot, filling out your bracket, but that's what it's all about with college basketball. That's when the excitement comes, and so you want to look at teams that can play any style and have multiple playmakers, and those are the teams that are typically going to move on. And these teams that have to have a certain style of play, like Colorado's probably not going to match up against a team that plays real physical, like an Alabama or somebody like that. So kind of look at that type of stuff when you're filling out your bracket.
Okay, we're winding down the show. Will, before we get out of here, is there anything else that you want to interject into the On the Mark Guru Vision before we sign off?
Yeah, I don't really have my finger on a team that's going to come out of nowhere. We punched a bunch of those out the first 4 or 5 weeks, but this week I don't really have one. I'm hoping maybe next week I can pull something out of my hat, but we're starting to get so late in the year. What they are is kind of what they are now.
Yep.
So, but I've enjoyed doing the show with you, Mark.
It's been pretty awesome. So we're going to keep looking at VCU, right?
We'll keep looking at VCU. I'd like to see them win that conference now that we kind of plucked them out of the air early on. And when everybody was talking about Richmond, and then everybody started talking about St. Bonaventure, and everybody started talking about Davidson, and nobody was talking about VCU that I heard except for us on this show.
Well, you've been kind of a magician with some of the stuff that you've talked about that's transpired over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's been fun. It's been fun watching you be right on some of this stuff. Folks, you have been watching On the Mark with Mark Rhoades, a college basketball podcast. Hope you've loved the program as much as I've loved doing it for you, and stay tuned. Next week, the show is at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. On the Mark with Mark Rhoades here on the Score On Air Network.